or you forget where you put your keys. And lots of us do that. That's normal. But when the keys are in the freezer, in an inappropriate place, that's when you have to start thinking, okay, something's going on. Don't wait until you have a medical diagnosis. This is something everybody should be doing when they're healthy. You should have your powers of attorney and your will ready when you're healthy. And I said, no, I've got the power of attorney. This is what Mom wants. The decision is made. This is her wishes, and that's what you do.
The Chronic Truth Podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The views expressed by our guests are their personal opinions and do not constitute medical advice. While we share experiences and strategies related to health, neither the host nor the guest are acting as licensed medical professionals unless explicitly stated. Always consult your physician or qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your treatment plan. Listeners assume all risks associated with implementing any information discussed on this show.
Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Janice Goldmintz. Janice is an advocate for families navigating Alzheimer's care. After helping both of her parents through the disease, Janice now uses her professional experience and lived experience to guide adult children through the complexities of planning, care, and emotional support. Janice, welcome.
Thanks, Kim. Really happy to be here.
This is an important topic. I can't tell you how many people I know that are recently have a family member that's been diagnosed. So this is really good information, and I thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
Share us a little bit about Janice and what you do.
So, as you alluded, I have a background in gerontology, which is the study of aging. And I also think I probably learned the most from lived experience, from having both of my parents that had Alzheimer's at very different times with very different outcomes and ways of expressing in them. Understand that Alzheimer's is not as bad as we may imagine at times. There's still amazing things that people can do even if they have Alzheimer's, and memories that can still be created.
I think it's important to distinguish between Alzheimer's and dementia.
Sure. So think about Alzheimer's and dementia, the same as you would think of fruit and orange. Fruit is the overarching category, and which is the same as the word dementia. Dementia is a number of different diseases that can happen, one of which happens to be Alzheimer's. The other is, and maybe people are more familiar with, frontal temporal lobe, because that's the one that Bruce Willis has. And we hear a lot about that in the media. So there are different dementias with different ways of expressing themselves. They're all related to cognitive issues, but they can express themselves differently. With Alzheimer's, what happens is people are tested for the other kinds of dementia. And when neither of those show up, the default is Alzheimer's.
When your parents were diagnosed, did you guys know much about?
I did. So what had happened actually is when my parents were younger, I did a mini mental status on them. And it's a little test and it's very easy. It's a memory test. And I gave a copy of their results to their physician. And I said, put this in their file because one day it might be important. And I actually educated that doctor. She didn't really quite understand why I was doing it. And a number of years down the road, I started noticing things with my mom especially. And I started retesting her. And I said, okay, now it's time to pull out that test that we did that's in her file, and we're going to compare. So I was quite aware of what I was looking at and could advocate for care for my mom to make sure that as I saw things happening, the care level was there.
What would you recommend for a caregiver that is new to coming into this? What are some steps that you can guide them to help and be a better caregiver for their aging parent?
So it's interesting because I just before the holidays sent out to a number of people my family visit checklist, because sometimes we don't know what to even look for. And so this checklist gave people a number of things to keep your eyes open for. Things like, is there unopened mail or overdue bills? Things like, is there too much food in the fridge, not enough food in the fridge? All of those kinds of things that might be just a little signal that something's going on. And if you do see something, talking about aging is the best solution. And so having that conversation with your parents saying, hey, I noticed, ... Or if you don't want to be the initiator, if you can talk to their physician and say, hey, this is what I've noticed, and have that physician be the one that is addressing some of the concerns. Knowing that there's support out there is also really, really knowing that you're not doing it alone, and that there are people who can help you navigate.
I know personally, my father, for one, he didn't necessarily have Alzheimer's, but he was getting forgetful, etc. He was very defensive when I brought that up. So I like the fact that you did recommend going to the physician. Sometimes, our parents don't want to show a weakness to us. So I think that's a wonderful idea to, talk to the doctor and let it come from them. Because then it's not as harsh, I guess, because some parents, like mine, didn't want to look weak. So
the other thing to understand is that as we get older, memory loss to some degree is normal. It's not that doesn't happen. It's knowing the, I'll say, tipping point of when it's problematic. And one of the best
Gotcha.
I can say that, there are 10 warning signs that the Alzheimer's Society has. And one of them is, if let's say you've gone to see a movie with your parents and they don't remember everything in the movie, that's very normal. But if they don't remember seeing the movie, that's when you have to start thinking. Or you forget where you put your keys. And lots of us do that. Oh, where did I put my keys down? And your keys are in the bedroom or in the bathroom. That's normal. But when the keys are in the freezer, in an inappropriate place, that's when you have to start thinking, okay, something's going on. It's a more extensive kind of memory loss that starts triggering, something's going on here.
Something's going on. What do you recommend for families that want to get all the siblings on board to help their parents? How do you get the whole family involved?
What you want to do is not come from, this is what I think you should do, whatever. It is a shared goal that you're looking at. And you have to take into consideration that your parent may want something different than you do. And as long as it's not unsafe or, really out of the realm of possibility, you have to listen to what your parent wants. It's right. Still their, it's still their life. Having everybody talk about what their strengths are, and you have to play to your strengths. The other thing that I want to say is you have to be really honest with each other, because sometimes we want to be almost martyrs. Oh, no, I can do everything. I can do it. And then we're experiencing burnout. And if we don't tell people that we're at that point, we assume they know. Well, you should know. Well, we don't. And again, it's asking for help. Hey, you know what? I really need a break. I've got to do something different. We need to figure this out. If you aren't living in the same city or you're not capable, just making sure that care is available. It's not important who's doing the care as long as they're being cared for.
And how do you know what's the best situation for your parent as far as, keeping them at home, putting them in a care facility? How does one know or recognize that?
There's probably 4 main criteria. For a lot of people, the first one is financial, because retirement residences, assisted living, all come at a fairly high cost. Especially if they are privately owned, there's no subsidy. The government doesn't cover that. You also have to look at community support. Is your parent still socially active? Are their friends where they live, or have their friends moved to retirement residences and that they would be around? You have to look at their health status. Are they healthy? Because lots of healthy people, still move to retirement residence because they want to be able to go on vacation, turn the key in their door, go out, not have to worry about taking care of their home. Everything's done and done for them. So their health status. And with that, I always tell people to look ahead, because today you may be healthy, but what happens if you have Alzheimer's? What happens if you have a physical disability? Is the place that you're living, whether home or somewhere that you're thinking of, going to be adaptable for you in the long run? If you have higher needs, would you have to move out of where you are, or could you stay there and, aging in place, and having the ability to do that as well?
And that's going to lead into my next question. When an elderly person is, the diagnosis, but they're still cognitive, that's probably the time to get them to, because they're still, coherent, to be able to make decisions for themselves, like their will and their power of attorney. Can we talk a little bit about that and what it is?
So I'm going to almost dial you back a little bit. Don't wait until you have a medical diagnosis. This is something everybody should be doing when they're healthy. You should have your powers of attorney and your will and your list of documents and all these other things ready when you're healthy. And I say that even to a 40-year-old, because, we never know when something's going to happen. So it's a good idea. So what the power of attorney allows for is, if you cannot speak for yourself, that somebody who you trust is going to step in and answer for you, because you're going to make it clear to them, in this situation, I would want this kind of care or not that kind of care. I wouldn't want artificial hydration. I would want CPR. I wouldn't want CPR. You aren't under stress where you can really think clearly. So that's my suggestion. And if you decide, I want to change what I want, you can always go and change that. It makes it a lot easier on the people around you and on the doctors, because what happens is somebody's going to come to you, and this happened to my dad, and they're going to say, do you want a DNR? And my father was like a deer in the headlights. And I said, no, I've got the power of attorney. This is what mom wants. The decision is made. This is her wishes. And that's what you do. Because again, that emotional turmoil, thinking, what would that person want? It's very challenging. And a lot of times we will put onto that person what we would want. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what they would want. So having that in place is really helpful.
Very good. Very good. How would a person advocate for their parent or whoever that they're going through Alzheimer's or dementia? How do you advocate for them the best way?
When it's your own parent, it's hard to separate yourself from the emotional side when you're watching something happen. But we have to, when we're dealing with other people who we want to get on board with us to care for our loved ones, we need to speak softly, but with assertiveness and with advocacy. If you see something that is concerning to you, bring it up. I mean, I had to do it when my parents were both in retirement residences. I had paid for certain levels of care that were not being given. And I had to go and say, I'm not seeing it. And I literally started documenting and saying, oh, well, dad was supposed to be taken for a meal. And on this day, I took him because nobody came. There's no emotion in that. That is reality and logic. So it's a lot easier to present that way. If you're concerned about something like abuse, that's a whole different kettle of fish that you have to really pursue with assertiveness, because it does happen. And if you see signs of abuse, that has to be reported, to police and and further on. But I really do believe trying to be collaborative, but firm is the way to go.
Beautiful. If a person with Alzheimer's does not have any family or anyone to help them, what do you suggest?
And it happens. As I said, a lot of times, even if you have family and your parents live in one place and you live in another, that you aren't there hands-on, eyes-on. So if this kind of thing happens, my suggestion is to bring in help, is to start thinking, who can I have to help me out? And it can be people in your faith community. It can be friends. It can be, other family. It doesn't necessarily have to be your nuclear family. It can be aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, cousins, whatever that might be. And to start looking at the professional level as well. Again, these are going to be things that are going to be determined by finances. And that's just the unfortunate reality, is that if you have financial ability, it's easier to find help. And if you don't, it's more challenging. I would also say, again, the Alzheimer's Society, there are support systems they can suggest in your area who might be able to reach out and help you. Your doctor may have some resources, or your local hospital. So there's a number of things you'd have to do. It is a little bit more challenging. You may get put together with a social worker or somebody who is aware of government services to try and bring in whatever government services are available for you as well. Or if you're a veteran services, all those types of things.
Perfect. What do you suggest for some caregivers that's experiencing burnout?
You have to be able to say no. Otherwise, you aren't able to care for the other person. So it's being aware of your own needs and making sure you take care of you as well as, your parents or your other loved ones.
Do you have any website, or if I have a listener that's looking to reach out for more information, are they able to get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram under Aging Parent Journey. So there's lots of really interesting reels and postings there that will give you some information. And I offer anybody a free 15-minute conversation, just to see where you're at, to see if I can give you some resources, help you out. And again, happy to answer questions, point you in the right direction, see how I could help you out.
And if your family's going through this, seek support, seek guidance, and Janice is full of a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you so much, Kim.
If you have been impacted with any of these episodes, I encourage you to go to the website, chronictruthpodcast.com. That's chronictruthpodcast.com. Share your experiences with me. I would love to hear from you. And until next week, bye.